the coast of Iceland, a rescue team races to a village in the grip of disaster. They arrive to find a site of utter devastation. The town of Flattery lies in frigid ruin under hundreds of tons of mountain snow. A score of residents are feared lost. Workers scramble to find the living and the dead, the victims of a sudden and massive avalanche.
I woke up to these terrible loud noises.
The earth was shaking.
It was shaking the house.
The roof was just turned off.
The wall hit my head.
Then the snow came.
The bed had moved into the next room.
I was crushed in between the walls and the roof, completely stuck in the snow.
When I came out, everything seemed very strange, and you couldn't hear nothing else but the wind, and you could hear people crying.
Where houses had been before, it was only snow and dark spots.
The avalanche took a big part of Flattery. Just took it away in a few seconds. They were just gone.
The avalanche. An event that is as extraordinary as it is horrifying. Over 1 million tumble down the mountains of the world each year. They range from harmless showers of snow to hurricane blasts that can strike with the force of 200 pounds of TNT. And some do. In its wake, age-old questions arise. How can simple snow become so destructive? Can the avalanche be controlled? It is these questions that awaken avalanche specialists around the world each winter season and press scientists to extremes in pursuit of answers. All for what seems a fairly simple act of gravity. Nowhere has the search been pursued longer than in Switzerland. In the shadow of the soaring Alps, reinforced walls on homes, churches, slopes covered with protective barriers, and sheltered roadways tell of a people under siege. For centuries, a war has raged with the avalanche, one that has killed more people here than any other natural disaster. In that time, the Swiss have come to know their enemy, an elaborately complex phenomena whose basic ingredients remain simple, that of snow and a slope.
An avalanche is just snow gliding down a slope. The only force acting on the snow cover is gravity, so an avalanche will start because of its weight.
Understanding these elements and how they are triggered to produce an avalanche is the job of Dr. Ottmar Busser of the Institute for Snow and Avalanche Research in Davos, Switzerland.
All around here are the mountains. They're all covered by snow. Some avalanches go. Some slopes don't go. The question is, why do they not go? The answer to this question is within the snow cover.
Whether an avalanche begins or not depends on the snow's ability to stay together and resist the force of gravity pulling it down the hill. In a laboratory, scientists can measure the strength of the snow.
I have here a sample of snow. I know how heavy it is, and what I wonder about is how strong it is.
Here, Dr. Busser uses centrifugal force to imitate the effects of gravity.
Going to turn now. Now, it's broken with, well, a few hundred turns in a second, and from that speed we can calculate the strength of the snow sample. We are interested in the strength of the snow sample because once it breaks, we have an avalanche out in the field.
But in the quest to predict when snow might break, scientists have to contend with one of nature's tiniest and most capricious wonders: ice crystals. Infinite in variety, ice crystals give snow its stability, yet they themselves are notoriously unstable. As frozen water vapor, ice crystals undergo continuous change with variations in temperature and humidity. How they become so individual is by way of an odyssey that begins when a water molecule freezes around a dust particle high above the earth. Then, out of the sky it falls, growing and shrinking as it drifts, picking up water molecules and ice crystals as it goes. A snowflake is a group of crystals, and the shape each crystal takes determines its crucial ability to bond within the snow cover. Small, rounded crystals packed tightly to create dense slabs of snow. Large and angular crystals tend to form loose, weak layers. How well these layers bond to each other is critical. If the bonds are weak, the seeds of an avalanche may be planted. Even an expert skiing the champagne powder of Montana cannot tell what dangers lie beneath the surface.
Temperatures?
Carl Birkland is an avalanche forecaster for the Gallatin National Forest. He and his partner Ron Johnson go out daily to evaluate the latest snow conditions.
Powder. I know. Just like no two snowflakes are alike, no two snowstorms are exactly alike either.
Yeah.
We're going to have storms that are warmer, where we'll put down denser snow, colder storms where the snow's all fluffy. And then we'll have some storms that are really windy, and then the snow packs in tighter and you get a denser layer. So we're going to end up with these different layers in the snowpack.
To get a look at the stability of these layers, forecasters dig a pit into the slope.
I wonder if this was from that. You know the wind event we had? It was a week ago.
By exposing a cross-section of the snowpack, They have a window on the history of the winter so far.
Looks like this is that wind slab from yesterday's wind event.
Just that downhill wind, huh?
Yeah, and all the soft bank snows from the storm that came in last weekend.
The story that unfolds reveals individual storms and even past changes in weather conditions.
This is that big wind event from 10 days, 14 days ago.
The strength of the layer is reflected in the light passing through a thin column. The darker layer is denser and more tightly bonded than the lighter snow on top.
And so this is the darker snow right here, and then this stuff up in here is a lot less dense, so the light's coming through it.
How these layers stack up determines the avalanche danger. An avalanche hazard begins to build when a weak layer forms on a slope. One classic type may consist of frozen dew. Known as surface hoar, these loose crystals are not in themselves dangerous. But if another layer is deposited on top with the help of the wind or a dense snowfall, a heavy slab can build up. When the force above becomes too much to bear, the result is an avalanche.
This is the weak layer. Little slab on top when we load this thing up.
Boy, it's going to rock and roll then.
For now, only a thin slab layer is on top, but the season is far from over. Carl and Ron will be closely watching the snows to come. But often, the discovery of avalanche-prone slopes is by accident. All that's required is the addition of what, in effect, is the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Yesterday, we were up skiing, and right away we knew it was a dangerous day due to wind. It just makes for really weird snow.
For 15 years, Chris Stone has taken on the backcountry of Montana. Like hundreds of other skiers each year, he has found himself an unwitting participant in the creation of an avalanche.
We're out there a lot. We have a feel for the conditions. We felt pretty safe. My partner went down first, cautiously, watched me go by, and I got out of sight from him, and I got caught in an avalanche.
In accidents like this one, even the most experienced skiers find they're no match for an avalanche.
It was up to speed so fast, there was no hope for any getting out of it. It took me and slammed me down.
The role Chris played in the avalanche was that of a trigger. By applying the final increment of pressure, avalanche triggers cause buried weak layers to fail, releasing all the snow above. Most avalanches are triggered by rapid, heavy snowfall, but most avalanche accidents are caused by people. Whether trigger or victim, with ignorance or arrogance, they can transform a natural act into a natural disaster.
Avalanches don't happen by accident, they happen for particular reasons. It's the interaction of terrain and snowpack and weather that make it possible to have an avalanche. But there's no avalanche hazard until you introduce people. It's the human factor. And really, it does come down to attitude. We're going to accept a different level of risk if we want to just go out snowboarding for the day and come back and live for another day. We're going to have a different level of acceptable risk if we want to climb this mountain no matter what. If you have a ski to die or a snowboard to die, or I'm going to live here no matter what, probably sooner or later you will die in an avalanche. I've dug out many, many bodies. I've been to lots of accident sites. They just didn't understand the risk they were taking.
In mountains like these, the risk comes with the territory. Avalanches kill hundreds of people every year. Most avalanches occur on slopes between 30 and 45 degrees, about the range of the most challenging runs at ski resorts like Bridger Bowl in Montana. Over 30 storms drop more than 25 feet of snow per winter here. With just the right slope angle and more than enough potential triggers, after the storm, Bridger Bowl should be a scene of slaughter. But it's not. Here, the avalanche risk is vigorously controlled. Each morning, well before the skiers arrive, the ski patrol gets ready to open the slopes.
They got skied heavily yesterday. We did get the ridge open, and it got hammered.
Led by Faye Johnson, these control specialists are preparing to trigger avalanches intentionally before skiers can later by accident.
The north and south rope lines on Bridger need some attention, just the usual things. So we might as well head on up.
At 9 a.m., the lifts will open. They have less than 3 hours to tame the mountain.
Got you, Lee.
They first use a technique called ski cutting. They try to dislodge unstable snow by traversing the slope slowly, but at an angle to give them an escape route should they trigger an avalanche.
This is my last move. When I come around, I'll be out of here. 10-4, go ahead. Thank you, Marlon.
For other slopes, they turn to a different method.
Ready to fire?
The 75-millimeter recoilless rifle pounds the highest and most distant slopes of Bridger Bowl. Through the veil of a winter storm, each 10-pound shell wallops a snowpack 1 mile away.
Ready to load. Loading! Locked and loaded! On target, ready to fire. Clear to the front, clear to the rear. Ready to fire. Fire!
In just minutes, the gun can clear several slopes, a job that would take the ski patrol hours to accomplish on foot. Wind-packed cornices are attacked with poles and shovels. If resistant, they're hit with an explosive punch.
Yes, just for clarification, they're hiking from the top of Bridger.
More than 1,000 explosive charges are set off at Bridger Bowl every year.
Is it armed now? It's not going to blow up yet. I've just put the fuse in there. Roll it up.
The fuse gives them 90 seconds to place the bomb.
Break everybody clear on Northville Road for fire.
For maximum effect, the charge is suspended above the snowpack, where its shock wave can do more damage. In just 2 hours, the ski patrol has made Bridger Bowl safe for another day. But that's only 1 square mile of the Bridger Range. Outside the resort lays the vast backcountry, thousands of miles of untended, uncontrolled slopes. Skiers are coming here in ever greater numbers, raising the stakes for forecaster Carl Birkland.
Over the past 6 years, we probably have about 3 times as many backcountry skiers as we ever did before. And if you get more people into the backcountry, you have more avalanche triggers and increasing death tolls. The most important things for me to do as an avalanche specialist is to get out in the field. I want to get out there, I want to walk on the snowpack, dig snow pits, do stability evaluations.
I think that's all we're going to get for a break here, Ron.
They combine field observations with the latest weather information.
Based on the models and this satellite loop.
Yeah, might just give us a little bit of shot of moisture tomorrow.
You kind of see it dropping in as this axis is off the west coast of the northwest part of Montana.
This forms the basis for their daily avalanche advisory.
Good morning, this is Carl Birkland with an avalanche advisory. I would call the avalanche danger mostly moderate to high on slopes steeper than 40 degrees and moderate on gentler slopes in the Bridger, Gallatin, Madison, and Washburn ranges, the Lionhead area, and the mountains around Cook.
But it's up to the individual to heed this warning.
We hope to give people the tools to make better decisions in the backcountry, which will hopefully save lives. I mean, people are going out to the really radical lines as soon as they can. They're really pushing the boundaries.
Typical are the snowmobilers. Thousands invade the national forests of Montana each year. With a 130 horsepower engine weighing 1/4 of a ton and exceeding speeds of 85 miles per hour, the snowmobile makes an impressive toy.
Usually there's about 10 of us go out riding. Our idea is just go out and have a good time and try not to break anything.
Here, the thrill of open throttle in open country is so powerful that warnings often fall by the wayside. High marking is a favorite activity, but for two snowmobilers, it became a game of Russian roulette.
We were climbing up the hill over here. Jim had went up at first and made a high mark on it. High marking's where you go up the hill, pretty steep hill, as far as you can, and you either start to get stuck because it gets too steep and deep, or the snowmobile starts to lose power. Then you turn around right before you get stuck.
We've had several avalanches come down on us before, but usually, you know, you're heading downhill when it's happened and you just kind of ride it out and it's been fine, but...
You know, it didn't feel like, you know, we were ever doing anything really ridiculous. Jim went up the hill first, and I waited till he got back down, and then I went up.
As soon as he made his corner up on top of the hill, it broke off up above him. I could see the suit tumbling in the snow, carried his sled into the trees, and then he disappeared.
I kind of remember swimming for a minute, and then I can remember just thinking to relax.
The avalanche buried John under 3 feet of snow. A similar accident caught on videotape shows how survival depends on immediate rescue. John nearly suffocated. When he was found, he wasn't breathing and had no pulse.
If it wouldn't have been for the people that were with me, I'm sure I wouldn't be here.
You read about it in the papers, but you figured it never happened to me.
A lot of people think that avalanches can't happen to them, but it's the same thing as someone who builds a home in a floodplain saying that they don't think that a flood will ever hit their house. If people go out and play on steep snow-covered terrain, in other words, play in avalanche terrain, then there's always the potential for them to trigger an avalanche.
The day after the snowmobile accident, Carl comes to investigate the site.
Carl, nice to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for calling me.
You ready to take a ride?
Yeah.
He joins Forest Ranger Jonathan Klein.
Sounds like a pretty interesting story.
In making the journey here, Carl hopes to piece together how the snowpack failed.
He ended up separated from his sled.
Yeah, his sled was upslope of him, 30, 40 yards.
Okay.
Carl treats this frozen landscape like the scene of a crime.
That must be where he was.
He was buried.
If you imagine, you know, the snow coming right over the top here, imagine your head being...
Avalanche debris is typically rock solid.
How hard that stuff is. It's just set up like concrete, you know? It's a rock.
Warmed by the friction of the fall, the air forced out of it. The dense snow quickly refreezes after it comes to rest.
Makes for a good stairway, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does. You can sure walk on this stuff easily.
They head for the crown, the wall created when the avalanche broke away.
I'll shoot the slope when we get up here a bit.
Right, this about looks like the steepest part. Take one more shot of the slope angle.
Okay.
This slide is classic, you know?
They check the slope angle using an inclinometer.
It tends to get people in trouble.
It falls within the most dangerous range, at 36 degrees.
It's just the perfect slope angle for just enough snow to build up on the bed surface.
Look how much steeper the crown is over on our left.
At the crown, Carl examines the snowpack. He finds a weak layer halfway down.
Remember how we were looking at that double weakness down at the...
Yeah.
But there must be another weak layer below it.
Sitting on a pretty decent little ice crust, isn't it? Out more.
To confirm it, Carl digs outside the avalanche, where the weak layer should lie undisturbed.
And then that other weak layer is just this thing.
It doesn't take long to find
Yeah,
it.
this is a real thin weak layer right here. Look at this guy.
The culprit is surface hoar, the large loose crystals that form the weakest bonds.
Yeah, look at that. You know, and right there, that's the layer that the avalanche released on. Right. We'll just use this first one.
A shovel test shows how vulnerable this snowpack was.
There's that first of those two breaks. Yeah. So, I mean, it's possible that the guy triggered it in this upper layer and then it broke down low. And look.
There is not one weak layer, but several.
And there's that one. That's the one that...
Carl puts the results of this investigation together to form two possible scenarios. In one, the lower weak layer breaks first and brings down the whole snowpack. In the other, the top layer makes the initial break. Then, as the slab begins to move, its weight breaks the second weak layer below, resulting in the near-fatal avalanche. But as Carl knows, understanding an avalanche after the fact is the easy part.
Ready? And go!
It's heading them off that remains extremely difficult.
We've been shut down by a pretty big storm, and we've had a total of 45 inches of new snow.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and land. Are you coming in?
My job is an avalanche forecaster, and I work closely with the highway crews to ensure that the safety of the road crews and the traveling public.
This is Colorado's Highway 550. With over 100 avalanche paths lining its route, this roadway is one of the most dangerous in America. Here, no one can afford to take any chances.
This stuff can build up, and then it'll run when we don't want it to run. So anytime the avalanche danger is on the increase, we'll recommend that the highway is closed. Then, when the storm's over, we can get our helicopters in with explosives to dislodge these pockets of unstable snow.
I didn't know if you wanted, but I ran out of 25.
With helicopters and hundreds of pounds of explosives, the operation entails a half-dozen sorties in a day-long preemptive strike.
Iron element number 1.
Oh, the highway department?
Okay, I was stationary right over the parking lot, right over the freeway. We're moving out now. The shop's come. I'm climbing up the hill.
Yeah, this ball is the CDOT.
Yeah, I'm down here with Rick, and we're wondering if maybe you could try one high up above 2 there.
By closing the road and hitting every suspect hill, they give the avalanche room to run wild, to exhaust its deadly potential in an awesome display of power, speed, and reach. But knowing ahead of time how far an avalanche can travel would help reduce the risk. A group of researchers at Montana State University are probing the hidden dynamics of the avalanche to help people protect themselves from its destructive power. They do what no other research team would dare attempt: trigger an avalanche onto themselves. Their risky experiment takes them to the cutting edge of avalanche science.
What we would like to learn is what are the mechanics involved at the base of the avalanche, because if you can figure out what's going on at the base of the avalanche, then you can figure out what the overall avalanche is going to do.
You're building a road through mountainous terrain. It'd be really nice to be able to locate that road so that it doesn't sit in a 100-year avalanche path and get wiped out. In order to do that, you need to know some of the mechanical properties of the flow.
Mark a different line.
The actual experiment will take place later in the winter when the conditions are right. Today, they prepare a shack that will be a window on the avalanche and the only protection from its force.
The bomb goes off, and about 10 seconds later, after about 10 seconds of quiet and anticipation, suddenly there's just a big whoosh as the avalanche goes by and over the top of you. That's pretty exciting. Yeah, there's a boat right there, but I think...
From inside the shack, Jim will observe the avalanche firsthand. He will monitor an array of instruments designed to capture the transformation of the snowpack from a settled mass to a raging torrent, and finally into ice-hard debris.
There's going to be 4 velocity sensors in there, and as the avalanche goes by, what we're interested in is how does the velocity change from the surface up into the avalanche. And so we will have sensors in here at various depths to measure that velocity.
What they're aiming for is a computer model of flow. From it, a more understandable picture of the avalanche should emerge, one that will foresee the worst a slope might produce.
I think what we're shooting for is to build a model that'll predict avalanche runouts.
Whether it will cross a road, whether it will pick up a bridge and carry it down into the river bottom.
In order to do that, you need to know some of the physical properties about the avalanche, how hard it's going to hit these structures, and again, that relates to the mechanical properties of the flow.
But we're waiting for more snow now. We get another couple feet of snow and we're in business.
Success here is no small matter. Misjudging the potential of avalanche terrain can lead to the most catastrophic disasters, as it did in Flattery, Iceland. The steep walls of a rocky fjord dwarf this fishing village 30 miles from the Arctic Circle. Avalanches were a fact of life here. The community felt it was prepared.
We've had avalanches from the mountain. We've had avalanches even that have affected our houses, but in another part of Flattery, not in this part of Flattery.
In choosing where to build their houses, the people of Flattery took history as their guide. Over the years, many different avalanche paths emerged, but none reached beyond a certain zone, and that defined the avalanche danger. When an avalanche warning was declared, only homes in the danger zone were evacuated, as they were on October 25th, 1995, after a week of heavy snows.
On Tuesday night, there was a warning, and people closest to the mountain, they left their houses. And people thought, okay, we are safe because we are down here. It's only a danger of avalanches up there.
But townspeople learned that the mountain was about to declare a new danger zone. While the village slept, a disaster was building above them. At 4 o'clock in the morning, it descended. Scientists believe the avalanche began when a quarter-mile-long, 12-foot-high slab broke from the mountain. Within seconds, an enormous powder cloud formed on top, moving at more than 125 miles an hour. The avalanche soon took a path unknown in the history of Flattery, bypassing evacuated homes and roaring deep into town. In all, 250,000 tons of snow came to rest in the village of Flattery, killing 20 people, destroying 17 houses, and crippling its sense of security forever.
We always knew that there was a danger of avalanches. But we wouldn't have believed it if somebody would have told us that this could happen.
In their complacency, the people of Flattery are not alone. In Alaska, the city of Juneau may be facing a similar fate. The people know well what looms above the city, a phalanx of 7 avalanche paths. Every once in a while, one will remind Juneau of its presence, as an avalanche did spectacularly in 1972, when its powder cloud rolled right through the center of the city. No one was hurt, but Juneau hasn't always been so lucky. 10 years earlier, a massive avalanche swept through one neighborhood on the city's edge, damaging 35 homes. This disaster sent a clear message of what the mountains are capable of. But has the warning been heard? Many homes remain dangerously close to the mountain.
Described over the years by a number of people as being the largest potential avalanche disaster in the makings.
Avalanche educator Doug Fessler has been sounding the alarm for decades.
It's an infrequent running path, but when it comes down big, look out.
Flying over the most threatening path, the danger is obvious, but not to the residents below.
People that live here love it. It's so convenient and yet cozy. I don't know if I'm naive or in denial or what, but you know, the last time anything happened was 30-some years ago.
The house has been here since 1950, and it's still here.
It's something we're aware of, and you know, it's not nice to have this sort of Damocles over your head, but I mean, we were more than delighted to get this house.
I doubt that any of these people, or very many of these people, have ever been through a bad avalanche. They've ever seen dead bodies or seen buildings ripped apart. The bottom line with this path is that it's really not a question of if they're going to get nailed by a big one. It's like a ticking time bomb sitting there waiting. And at some point when the conditions are right, it'll come.
To help end this perilous guessing game, 1,500 miles away, the research team from Montana State University heads back out into the Bridger Range.
Beautiful day.
They plan to follow through on their experiment, to look at an avalanche from the inside and undermine forever its weapon of surprise. But first, they must find their shack of instruments, lost for now in the storm. They take care as they move, knowing that at any moment they could trigger a slide.
I think that our concern today is wind loading off the cornices, and since we don't have any wind coming through this general area, I feel like this is going to be good, but if you'll just keep an eye on me, I'll give it a quick ski cut.
They risk only one person at a time across the most treacherous slopes.
It didn't feel like it moved much, but you might want to make your runs next to the tree.
Yeah. You want to go, Brad? Go ahead.
I'll go for it.
For a few brief seconds, each is on his own. Once they locate the shack, they have to remove the accumulated snow.
Well, once I broke, I decided what the heck.
Stand up now, Jim. Hunched is hunched.
They prepare their instruments and take measurements of depth and density. They will compare these numbers with those they find later in the avalanche and its aftermath.
About 130 at the top, ranging down to about 280.
Sounds good.
Their chance to observe the dynamics of the avalanche will last only a few brief seconds. Colored powder will help them measure velocity. To ensure the slide is triggered, they use 4 5-pound hand charges. Jim and Jay will be inside the shack. The rest of the team watches from a safe spot near the trees. All are tense. They have one shot.
Lift, Eric.
Here she comes! I cannot move. We need to be dug out.
Why don't you see if they're all right in there? Someone got a radio?
I got them here. They're alive.
Are they happy?
Well, Scotty, Jay and I cannot move. We are buried inside the hut.
Tell them to get me out of here!
How you doing?
Well,
You guys all right?
Yeah, but you better think fast, because I'm like in a bad position.
Being buried alive was not part of the plan. The size of the avalanche caught them off guard.
I was pinned.
We got data.
Good.
But in risking themselves, the researchers have obtained valuable information. They clocked the avalanche at nearly 50 miles per hour.
There's two distinct layers in the flow, and it's really homogeneous.
Despite its chaotic appearance, they find evidence of a multi-layered structure.
And we saw something similar to that last week, remember?
A lot of times we'll pick up some structure in the debris, like some finer chunks and stuff, but it all seems to be pretty smooth.
It could very easily have come down, filled in all the irregularities that we left, deposited that, and then flowed over the top of that as a separate layer.
These findings offer numerical clues to the rules that govern the power and extent of flow. They will soon be used with the computers to predict avalanche runout, a tool of the future that could hold the key to protecting people, towns, and roads. In Switzerland, nearly 2/3 of mountain roads wind their way through avalanche terrain. Until recently, sheltering them was one of the only options.
There are a lot of avalanche defense structures there already, but to make the whole road absolutely safe would cost a fortune.
A new approach is spearheaded by Dr. Tom Russi of the Swiss Institute. He is leading the development of the most advanced early detection system in the world. The plan is to capture a precise picture of what's happening where avalanches start, thousands of feet above the roadways. Here, on the shoulder of a 10,000-foot peak, Tom and his colleagues have come to where avalanches are born, an area known as the starting zone. They are looking for a spot to place a high-tech station, one that will keep a watchful eye on the snow that accumulates here.
It should be at an altitude where major avalanches actually start, but it's always a trade-off. The closer you get to the place avalanches are, the more problem you have to find a safe place.
Already these mountains are being watched by a nearly invisible web of over 40 weather towers designed to safeguard the region's vital roads, like Simplon Pass. A bloodline that links Switzerland with Italy, it has long been a victim to surprise avalanches. But maybe no longer, because high above the most vulnerable stretch of road, one experimental tower stands vigil. To be effective, it needs to be accurate. Tom takes the snow depth and temperature manually to compare to the readings taken by the tower. Along with snowpack data, the tower measures humidity and air temperature, all information vital to forecasters. For wind statistics, he relies on another tower perched 1,500 feet above. For the past few days, it has mysteriously gone silent. Wind direction and speed indicate whether snow is drifting from one side of the mountain to the other, overburdening the snowpack that threatens the road below. At this height, above any peaks or obstacles, true wind speed can be obtained, but it makes repair of the instruments a deadly challenge. Tom finds it encrusted with ice. With a few blows, Tom frees the wind meter. Now the station is ready to resume its work, giving local forecasters the vital statistics from the very locations where avalanches form. The next morning, Tom dials up the station he just visited. He confirms his repair of the wind station.
Well, a couple of days ago we didn't get any data, and now that the station works, wind speed is about 20 kilometers an hour.
Then he checks the manual readings of temperature and humidity he gathered in the field. To his relief, they match the transmissions from the station.
It certainly doesn't belong.
This constant stream of information is also being downloaded into computers at the Swiss Institute to help them better understand avalanches and forecasting.
Exactly. What we want to know in the end is what the mechanical properties are. We are far away from that.
In the past, weather forecasting was based on the forecaster's experience and intuition. And nowadays, weather forecasting is based on computer models. In avalanche forecasting, our understanding of the physics of snow and ice has improved a lot.
Because we measure the snow depth with old telescopes.
And we now need to put this knowledge into computer models, and that will help to improve avalanche forecasting significantly.
Well,
a rendering of the layers in the snowpack is at last emerging, fueled by vast amounts of data from the stations and a better understanding of snow dynamics. Half a world away, over another mountain range, Carl Berkland is also conducting research to sharpen the tools of forecasting. Today's ambitious experiment is simple in design, but complex in execution. He's devised a way to measure how snow stability changes over the entire Bridger Range. Since dawn, the helicopter has been ferrying volunteers in teams of 2 to designated sites along the 20-mile ridge. They head down with the goal of digging as many snow pits as possible in one day.
One of the first things we have to do is get out here, dig 70 to 80 pits, and try and map what's going on one given day throughout a mountain range. And no one's done that before.
Stability tests find the weak layer, and a ram penetrometer measures how much force it takes to break through all the layers. These results, plus slope angle and direction, are carefully recorded.
And hope is that we can take all this data and combine it in such a way that we can start to describe how snowpack changes with changes in terrain.
Eventually, Carl is able to map snow strength across the entire range. The red marks areas most prone to avalanche, a deadly convergence of steep incline and weakly bonded snow. It is only a fleeting glimpse of conditions under constant change, but mapping is a first step in the eventual improvement of avalanche forecasting. But places like Iceland can't wait for better forecasting methods to be refined. Here, a town prepares for another winter.
It's been a little over a year ago since the disaster in Flattery, which killed 20 people. And in this past year, we've been contemplating and designing defense structures for the town of Flattery. We've come up with a design called a deflecting wall, which is aimed at diverting avalanches away from the village.
The mission is to anticipate the worst so the town will not be fooled again.
Up there.
At the base of the mountain, a wall is rising. 20 million cubic feet of earth, reaching 60 feet high. It is designed to divert avalanches twice the size of the one that surprised Flattery.
The avalanche comes down, it comes shooting down this way, and hopefully it'll hit the wall right over here, and it'd be deflected down alongside the wall. And it may not look like much right now, but we do have half of it built. We'll go another 7 or 8 meters up, and this way we hope to give them a really good sense of security.
More help may be on the way. The scientists around the world work slowly, painstakingly, to unravel one of nature's most daunting puzzles. New technologies, new techniques, and new understanding are transforming the tools of avalanche prediction and control. But while the future may hold promise, the snows will not wait. And with the coming of each winter season, those living among the mountains must brace once again for what might come their way. The avalanche.